Dear ones, close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You are standing by a river at dusk. The water is calm, reflecting the last golden light of the sun. You bend down and pick up a handful of stones. Each stone has a name. One is labeled regret, another is fear, another still anger. You hold them tightly, not realizing how heavy they make your hands feel. This is how many of us walk through life, carrying stones that were never meant to be permanent. A harsh word spoken years ago, a mistake made in our youth, a dream that did not unfold as we hoped. We keep them in our pockets, in our hearts, in our minds, until we are so weighed down we forget that walking can be light. Letting go begins with one simple question: what am I still holding that no longer serves me? It doesn't have to be something dramatic. Sometimes it's as small as the irritation you feel when someone cuts in line at the store. Sometimes it's as deep as a betrayal from someone you trusted. But whether small or large, every stone is heavy when you cling to it. I remember a story of a young man who carried anger toward his father for many years. His father had been strict, distant, and often critical. Even as the young man grew older and started a family of his own, he could not shake the bitterness. One evening, he sat quietly with his breath, whispering, "May I let this go?" At first, nothing happened. But night after night, he repeated the prayer. Slowly, his chest loosened, his breath softened, and one morning he told me, for the first time, I looked at my father and saw not my enemy, but another human being who also struggled, who also suffered. That shift was not magic, was the quiet miracle of letting go. Dear one, letting go does not mean pretending something never happened. It means loosening the grip it has on your heart. Imagine the stone in your hand. You are not denying its weight. You are simply choosing to set it down by the river, to let the current carry it away. While you step forward, lighter, freer. History tells us this truth as well. The Buddha himself, before enlightenment, tried every extreme luxury hardship, control before realizing that true peace came not from holding on, but from releasing. He sat beneath the Bodhi tree, not clinging to fear, not resisting the past, not chasing the future. He let go, and in that letting go, awakening bloomed. Sometimes, freedom arrives in unusual ways. I once read of a man who had a prized collection of rare books. One day, a fire destroyed them all. At first, he was devastated. But later, he said, that fire taught me something I could not learn otherwise. That joy does not live in my shelves. It lives in my heart. Strange, isn't it? That loss can sometimes become a doorway to freedom. So here, at the start of our journey together, I invite you, notice the stones you carry. Do not judge yourself for holding them. Simply ask, am I ready to put one down? You don't need to drop them all at once. Even one stone laid down at the river's edge makes your hands lighter for the journey ahead. And if this reflection stirs something inside you, stay with me, dear ones. Because as we walk together through these words, you may find that the weight you've carried for years does not have to define the rest of your story. When you let go, peace begins to grow. Tonight, let that seed be planted, and as we move forward, we will water it together with breath, with compassion, with courage. Dear ones, have you noticed how the breath is like a river? It flows without asking for permission, carrying us moment by moment. And yet, so often, we forget it is even there. We breathe as if on autopilot, carrying our stones from one day to the next. But when you pause, when you listen deeply to the rise and fall of your own chest. The river begins to whisper, "You can let this go." I recall a woman who once came to me with tears in her eyes. She said, "My mind is always racing. At night, I cannot sleep because I replay every mistake I've ever made." I ask her to place her hand on her heart and feel one breath. Just one. At first, she shook her head. "It's too simple. My problems are too big." But she agreed to try. One breath became three. 3 breaths became a minute. A minute became a practice she returned to each evening. And over time, the river carried her into sleep. Not by solving every problem, but by reminding her that she did not need to carry them all at once. Breath is the bridge between holding on and letting go. When you inhale, you may feel the weight of your day-to-day meetings, the arguments, the endless to-do lists. When you exhale, you have a chance to release them, if only for a moment. That moment of release is not trivial. It is a seed. With practice, that seed grows roots. In the time of the Buddha, there was a monk named Ananda, beloved for his memory and devotion. One evening, he confessed that despite all his knowledge, his heart still clung to fear. The Buddha smiled and said, "Ananda, watch your breath. See how it comes and goes without you clinging. Let your mind do the same." That simple teaching became a lifelong practice, not just for Ananda, but for generations after him. Dear one, you may find it strange that something so ordinary could hold such power. We often look for peace in extraordinary places, a faraway retreat, a new possession, an accomplishment that will prove our worth. And yet, the doorway is right here in the breath you are taking now. Think of this. Every time you let go of one breath, another naturally arrives. You do not panic that your next breath will not come. You trust. What if you trusted life in the same way? What if you believed that when you let go of one chapter, one role, one expectation, the next would come to meet you? A man once told me that after losing his job, he sat in despair for weeks. Then, during a morning walk, he noticed how the leaves fell so freely from the trees. They did not cling. They simply surrendered to the air. In that moment, he realized, perhaps losing his job was not the end, but a falling leaf making space for new growth. Indeed, months later, he found a new path. One, he said, brought him more joy than he had ever imagined. Strange, isn't it? How the smallest observations can awaken the largest truths. That is the power of mindful breath. As you sit tonight, I invite you to place your hand gently on your stomach. Feel the river rise as you breathe in. Feel it fall as you breathe out. With each exhale, whisper to yourself, "Let go, let go." And notice, with each whisper, how your body softens, how your mind untangles, how your spirit grows lighter. Remember, peace does not arrive with thunder or lightning. It grows quietly, like a plant in the soil, nurtured by each gentle release. Tonight, your breath is the gardener. Stay with me, dear ones, for in the next step, we will explore how even in darkness, when the night feels long and heavy, there is a light that begins to shine the moment you release your grip. When you let go, peace begins to grow, and the river of breath is always here, waiting to carry you home. Dear ones, sometimes the night feels endless. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, your thoughts circling like restless birds. The darkness outside seems to mirror the heaviness inside. But what if I told you the night is not your enemy? That within the darkness lies a gift, waiting for you to open it. Let me share a story. There was a man who lived in a small village. By day he was cheerful, always smiling at neighbors, always busy with work. But at night, when the world grew quiet, his heart felt heavy. He told me, "The silence is unbearable. It makes me hear my regrets louder." One evening, I asked him to sit outside under the stars. At first he complained that it was too dark, too cold. But then, as his eyes adjusted, he noticed how the stars only revealed themselves when the sky was darkest. He whispered, "Without this darkness, I would never see their light." From then on, each night became less of a burden and more of a teacher. Dear ones, darkness is not emptiness. It is the womb of transformation. Just as seeds must be buried in the soil before they can sprout, we too must rest in the unknown before new growth emerges. The Buddha himself often sought solitude in the forest at night. Imagine the courage it must have taken, surrounded by wild animals, no lamps, no protection. Yet, in that silence, he discovered the stillness of the mind. He realized that the fear we feel in darkness does not come from the night itself, but from our refusal to sit with what is unknown. Have you noticed how your mind works when you cannot see? When you walk into a dark room, you imagine shapes, shadows, threats. Most of them are not real, but your mind creates stories. Life is much the same. We cannot see the full path ahead, so our thoughts invent tragedies, failures, disasters. But in truth, the darkness is simply the absence of light. It does not harm you. One woman once told me about her divorce. She described it as walking into a cave. She could not see an exit. She could not imagine a future. But as months passed, she began to hear her own voice again, softer but clearer. She started painting, something she had not done since childhood. She discovered friends who supported her in ways she never expected. Years later, she said, the cave was not a prison. It was the place where I found myself again. Strange, isn't it? How the very thing we resist, solitude, darkness, becomes the ground of our healing. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, do not fight the night. Instead, let it cradle you. Close your eyes and picture the stars, even if you cannot see them. Know that they are always there, shining in the vastness above you. Let the darkness remind you that peace does not need bright lights or noise. It simply asks for your surrender. Take a breath with me. Inhale the coolness of the night. Exhale your grip on control. Whisper softly, I release, I trust. Feel how the body eases, how the heart no longer resists. This is the gift of darkness sit. Teaches us to let go of what we cannot see, to trust that the morning will come. And when morning does arrive, you will find that peace has been quietly growing in the soil of your surrender, just as seeds sprout unseen before breaking through the earth. Stay close, dear ones, for in the next part, we will uncover how letting go not only brings personal peace, but transforms the way we live with others, the way we love, the way we forgive, the way we create harmony in a world often so full of noise. When you let go, peace begins to grow, and in the darkness, you may find that peace glowing brighter than dear ones. Peace is not only for the solitude of the night, it blossoms most beautifully in the garden of our relationships. After all, we are not alone in this life. Every word, every gesture, every silence, these weave the fabric of our shared existence. Yet, how often do we carry the weight of expectations, disappointments, and grudges into our connections with others? I once met a young woman who carried anger toward her father for decades. He had been strict, never showing warmth. Even as an adult, she held resentment like a stone in her pocket. One evening, she attended a meditation retreat. During a guided reflection, she imagined her father as a young boy, lonely, misunderstood, doing his best though clumsy in love. She wept. For the first time, she saw not the father who failed her, but the human being who also suffered. She told me later, when I let go of my demand that he should have been perfect, I finally felt free. Dear ones, letting go in relationships is not about forgetting the hurt or pretending it never happened. It is about loosening the knot we keep tightening in our own hearts. Holding on to resentment is like gripping a rope while being dragged. It only deepens the wound. Releasing it does not excuse the other's actions. It simply frees us from continuing the suffering. The Buddha taught about compassion not as an idea, but as a practice. Once, a monk was insulted repeatedly by a villager. Day after day, the man shouted harsh words, hoping to provoke anger. Yet the monk remained calm. Finally, the villager asked, "Why don't you fight back?" The monk replied gently, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse it, who does it belong to?" The villager was speechless. The gift of anger remained with him, never entering the monk's heart. Dear ones, how often do we accept such poisonous gifts? How often do we let another's bitterness become our burden? Tonight, consider, what gifts of anger or criticism have you been carrying that were never truly yours? Let me share another story. A couple came to me, weary from years of conflict. Each blamed the other for unhappiness. She never listens. He never cares. They sat across from each other, arms folded, eyes averted. I asked them to breathe together in silence for 5 minutes. At first, they resisted, but as the minutes passed, their bodies softened. They began to glance at each other, eyes moist. By the end, they reached across the table, hands trembling, hearts raw. In that simple pause, they let go not of the marriage, but of the need to always be right. Letting go in relationships is not the end of love, is the beginning. When we release our grasp on how others should be, we create space for them to be as they are. In that space, real love breathes. Think of the waves on the ocean. They rise, they crash, they dissolve. If you try to hold a wave in your hands, you end up with nothing but foam slipping through your fingers. Love is like this. When we try to control it, it fades. When we allow it to rise and fall freely, its beauty unfolds naturally. Dear ones, tonight, as you lie in the quiet of your room, bring to mind someone you love but with whom you feel tension. Imagine placing the heavy stone of expectation on the ground. Whisper within, I release you to be yourself. I release myself to love without chains. Feel how light your chest becomes, how your breath flows more easily. This is not a one-time act, but a practice. Each day, each night, we are invited again to let go of the little hooks that snag us. And each time we release, peace expands within us. And also between us, remember, peace is not only the absence of conflicted, is the presence of compassion. By letting go, you become a channel of compassion in the world. And isn't that what we most long for? To live not as prisoners of old wounds, but as open hearts that can embrace life as it comes. Dear ones, stay close. For in the final part, we will weave together everything we have discovered. How letting go shapes not just the night, not just our relationships, but the very direction of our lives. And we will see how peace, once a fragile seed, becomes a mighty tree shading us and all who come near. When you let go, peace begins to grow. And in relationships, that peace becomes a love deeper than fear, wider than the ocean, brighter than the morning sun. Dear ones, we have walked together through the quiet of night, the burdens of the mind, the tenderness of relationships. Now, let us step back and see the larger picture. Letting go is not a single act. It is not something you do once and finish. It is a path, a lifelong companion. And on this path, peace blossoms, not suddenly, not loudly, but like dawn spreading gently across the sky. I remember meeting an elderly monk in the mountains of Vietnam. He had lived through wars, poverty, and exile. Yet when I sat with him, his eyes shone with a childlike clarity. I asked, "How do you remain so peaceful after everything?" He smiled and said, "Each day I let go of yesterday. Each breath I let go of fear. That is all." His words were simple, but they carried the weight of decades of practice. Dear ones, we do not need to wait until old age to live like this. Every night before sleep, we can choose to loosen the knots of the day. Think of a tree in autumn. The leaves, once green and vibrant, now turn golden and fall. Does the tree cling? No, it lets go, knowing that spring will come again. If the tree resisted, if it tried to hold every leaf forever, new life could not appear. Our hearts are like this. When we let go of the leaves of regret, anger, and fear, space opens for new blossoms of joy, love, and wisdom. But here is something surprising. Letting go does not make us weaker. It makes us stronger. Many believe holding tightly shows strength, but in truth, real strength is shown by the one who can release. The river is strong not because it clings to the rocks, but because it flows freely toward the ocean. Dear ones, perhaps you wonder, if I let go, won't I lose myself? Won't I be empty? Listen closely. When you let go, you do not lose yourself, you discover yourself. You peel away the layers of what is not you, the grudges, the comparisons, the false identities. And what remains is the clear, open sky of your true being. There is a story of a farmer whose old horse ran away. His neighbors came to pity him. What bad luck! But the farmer said, maybe. A few days later, the horse returned with 2 wild horses. What good fortune! The neighbors exclaimed. The farmer again said, maybe. Then the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses, fell, and broke his leg. What misfortune, said the neighbors. The farmer still said, maybe. Later, soldiers came to recruit young men for war, but the son was spared because of his injury. What others saw as disaster or blessing, the farmer received with equanimity. His secret: he let go of the need to label every moment. He lived with peace, trusting the flow of life. Dear ones, this story reminds us that life will always rise and fall like waves on the ocean. If you resist, you suffer. If you flow, you find freedom. And here is the most beautiful part. Peace does not remain only within you. It radiates outward. A peaceful person becomes a refuge for others. Like a candle lighting other candles, your calm presence can bring light to many lives. When you let go, peace grows not only in your heart, but also in your family, your community, even in strangers who cross your path. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, try this simple practice. Close your eyes and imagine placing all the worries of the day into a small boat. Push it gently into the river of night, watching it drift away under the stars. Whisper to yourself, I release, I forgive, I trust. Let your body soften, your breath slow, your spirit expand. Feel how peace, like a seed long waiting, begins to sprout. Dear ones, remember this. Peace is not something you must chase. It is already here, waiting beneath the clutter. Each time you let go, you clear the soil, you allow it to grow. One day, you will look back and realize the garden of your heart is blooming not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. So, let us live gently. Let us release bravely. Let us rest deeply. When you let go, peace begins to grow like a song carried on the wind. Like a sunrise, no darkness can stop. Thank you, dear ones, for walking with me on this journey. If these words touched your heart, I invite you to stay connected. Share this peace with others, leave your reflections below, and subscribe so that together we may continue exploring the path of awakening. For there are many more stories, many more truths, waiting to be discovered. Together. Until next time, may your nights be soft, your days be light, and your heart be free. When you let go, peace begins to grow.